Hello, everyone. Welcome to Second City Sports Zoom style.
Zoom style.
Zoom style.
I'm Lakina McGee. You can follow me at Keena McGee on Twitter, at Keena's_McGee on the Instagram.
I'm Sid the Kid. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. You can follow this show along with all the programming from We Are Regal Radio on Anchor, which keeps you over to Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes. We're everywhere. And don't forget to download that iHeartRadio app. Just download that iHeartRadio app and search for War on Anchor. That's WARR on Anchor, and you'll access our lovely programming right there.
All right, I'm Jason Pfeiffer, and you can follow me at Truth and Reason _ on the Twitter, and you can also follow the show's Twitter handle at 2NDCSCHI.
Fabulous. So, guys, week one in the NFL is almost in the books. We got a couple of games tonight. We're recording this on Monday, as you guys know. But some interesting and very exciting things. We're going to dedicate this first hour for that. So we'll start with the Bears game, of course. I'll let you guys have the floor because I have my thoughts. I want to wait till last. So, Jason, since you haven't been here with us in the last couple of weeks, I'll let you go first.
Okay.
What do you think about the game yesterday with the Lions?
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, first of all, glad football is back in whatever capacity it is. I will say this, I think as far as a general league observation goes, you could definitely see why there is a need for at least a 2-game preseason, in my opinion, or a 1-game preseason. I saw a lot of rust, I guess you could call it. Not just with the Bears and Lions game, but I thought I saw a little bit of it throughout the league in a few games. Just some teams that got off to just a bit of slow starts, and I think sometimes maybe that the preseason can help that. But to our Chicago Bears, who got their season off to a good start, a W is a W, right? And Sid and Lakina, a win is a win. I think as a Bears fan, you'll take it. Although obviously it was against the Detroit Lions, who are still the Detroit Lions. They can't seem to close out games. This is a really disturbing trend under Matt Patricia in his third season. They pretty much led the league in blown fourth quarter leads, and this one was a 16-point lead. And they, the Lions, they blew it. Although I feel bad for DeAndre Swift, though. I mean, he was right there on that little seam route down the sideline. Perfect throw by Matt Stafford. I mean, you can't put it any better. But it's one of those things you can't always count on the running back to catch the ball. But the Bears get the win, and of course I take this to Mitchell Trubisky. Well, let me curtail that for a second. What I did like about the Bears, they were committed to running the football. That was something that they were not committed to doing last year, with a bit of a triumvirate, if you will, of Cordero Patterson, Tariq Cohen, and David Montgomery. You could see the effort was there to run the ball, and it showed. They were very successful in doing that, and hopefully they can continue that trend throughout the season. We'll see. The defense did not look inspired or energetic at all, really lackadaisical. I think that's something that they can fix, but no Khalil Mack really impact game there. I thought he would come out and have a good start to a season. Not so much the case, but again, very, very early. And again, I still think some of these teams are really rusty that really need to get into that game type of shape. But on to Trubisky. I mean, you guys saw the game. First 3 quarters, he was horrible. Let's just put it out there. He's still doing the same Mitch Trubisky stuff, missing wide open receivers, footwork and fundamentals going out the window under pressure. And it's the same old story. And he's maddeningly inconsistent. In his third year, this is still the same story that we get with Mitch Trubisky. He had a hell of a fourth quarter, right? I mean, that's the Trubisky supporters will say, well, that's where the quarterbacks make their money in the first place. And he still led the team on the comeback to a win. But if the Bears have any hopes of doing any damage in the playoffs and getting to a Super Bowl, they have to have a consistent quarterback. And he can't just be a guy that's good for 1 out of the 4 quarters. They need one that's good for 4 out of the 4 quarters. So With that being said, I know I talked a lot there, but I will throw it to you, Sid, as we say hello to Lamont and bring him in. I think what's going on, Lamont?
Hey, good people, how y'all doing?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Good to see y'all.
Good to see you too. Okay, Sid, you're up. Or not.
All right, Sid.
Yeah, I think so. So, Lamont, go ahead. Give us your thoughts on the Lions-Bears game yesterday.
You know what? That Lions-Bears game was scary, and it was like Jason had mentioned a minute ago. Mitch was just Mitch, and I was sitting there wondering, well, what's going to happen next? What do we do next? How did this go next? And, yeah, he did make a couple of plays, but the defense, I think, felt Mitch's lack of playing in that in them first 3 quarters. Because even when they came out after halftime, they didn't have nothing in them. They was like, since he don't care, we don't care. But after they made that score, he started to act like he was okay. They was a little more into it. And I think they need that type of fire from the start if they plan on making any kind of run in any type of playoff situation or even in their own division.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I find it interesting because, for those whole 3 quarters, the Bears were terrible. And I'm sorry, but you're not going to get a cookie for making a comeback against the Lions. The Lions did like 3 times last year. So to see, I see people say, well, a win's a win. Okay, yeah, fine. I get that. But at the same time, though, the Lions gave that game away. I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, we all saw Matt Prather make 60. I saw him make a couple of 60-yarders when he was with the Broncos. So I can understand why they went for that kick, but you're up 10 points, play the field position, kick that away, and make them, go down the field. I think that's 1. And 2, why did you pass on 3rd? What was it, 7, where the running game was actually working for you? So why did you go with the run?
Adrian Peterson was killing them.
Yeah, he was. And why wasn't he a factor in that 3rd down in that last possession that led the interception from Kyle Fuller, and which led them to that which ended up tying the game?
Yeah.
I just think that, look, I mean, the defense looked lax, and Mitch looked like Mitch. And
Mitch is yeah,
everything else going on. What was that, Lamont?
Mitch gonna be Mitch, and that's horrible. I hate that we have. I mean, I see no future for the Bears with Mitch Trubisky. Like, I don't see it. Like, and I think the other people on the team see it, and that's why they wasn't giving 100% in that first half. Now, if that 4th quarter make them come out into this next game fired up from the start, maybe we hope so. But I'm not willing to bet on it, man.
Well, yeah. Well, let's say, I mean, they should have killed the Lions. Let's be honest. They didn't have Darius Slay's not there anymore. Desmond Trufant, which was like the only decent secondary guy that the Lions had, he was hurt. You were down to like your 4th or 5th stringer. So like, come on. I mean, you should have. Trubisky should have ran circles around that Lions secondary, but they didn't. And yeah, it could have been Russ, but I'm gonna channel the ghost of the late great Denny Green and say the Bears are who you thought they were, and the Lions let them off the hook.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they did.
So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like with that, not only did they let him off the hook, the Lions coach, I don't see him making it through the year. And then if you look at 2 people that have good games against the Lions, Mitch Trubisky and Anthony Miller. Like, Trubisky, they all stars against the Lions.
Yeah, I will say that. I mean, listen, that again, good Mitch, bad Mitch, right? It was a great throw to Anthony Miller for that touchdown, but Anthony Miller had a big drop earlier in the quarter, I think. So it's a take what we can get type of deal. Trubisky just got to be more consistent. I mean, I think we're all starting to sound like the broken record here. We've all seen it. It's in year 3 now. Another observation, though, that I also found concerning, I think that was at the end of the first half, right? Poor time management by Matt Nagy there. Really really poor. It allowed the Lions an extra possession. It actually got their momentum going, really. In a tie game, that was 6-6. It ended up getting them that possession that to go down for the touchdown right before the half. So I don't know how to feel about this win, guys. As a fan, I mean, I think it's a take what you can get type of deal, but there's nothing particularly encouraging about it outside of the running game.
Yeah, and the running game was good. The running game was, at least he went to it. And I think he only went to it in the beginning like that just to show, okay, that I'm going to try to do something different to make us think he was doing something different. But at the same time, he didn't stick with it. So,
yeah, that's sort of the thing. And he kind of went away from it, too, in the second half, unfortunately. So he actually – and Mitch – and now I'm going to be honest here because I think Mitch, a couple of those throws that thankfully Allen Robinson and Anthony Miller made those catches, but it sort of looked like those look like Jay Cutler-esque.
Yeah,
and
how
I
you
hate saying that, so I don't know how you guys feel about it. As we're still having problems with still having problems with his Wi-Fi, but what do you guys think? Because to me, it just seemed like he looked a little like Cutler there.
Yeah. Not the ghost of Jay Cutler. You are not bringing back the ghost of Jay Cutler. Cutler, we don't want no more Jay Cutler stories. I mean, we need to just, I think we shouldn't even, after the Giants game, I heard someone say he'll be gone by week 4. So maybe he'll be gone by week 4.
Well, here's the thing, right? I mean, it's receivers bailing him out a lot of the time. And sometimes that's okay. But it goes back to his accuracy issues and his fundamental issues, right? I mean, if you're standing in the pocket and you're fading away on a fadeaway route, you're gonna either do one of two things, right? You're gonna either badly underthrow the ball, which is probably gonna be a pick, or you're gonna overthrow the ball, which also could be a pick. It's just not gonna be an accurate pass. And again, when there's we see it time and time again. Even when there is a little bit of pressure in the pocket, that footwork has a tendency to go right out the door. And I'm hearing people keep going back to, well, that's coaching. That's coaching. The coaching can only get you so far, right? I mean, you have to do it in game situations. I don't want to hear the excuse of he's not being coached well anymore. I just don't want to hear that anymore. It's in year 3. He's a professional. He should know at this point where his mechanics and his footwork need to be for him to be successful. So hopefully, I think we got Sid back now. I think hopefully he can jump in and give us his thoughts on the game.
And yes, still having trouble. Sid, can you hear us?
Yeah, he's coming in and out, I think.
Yeah. So, well, okay, Lamont, what do you think about the defense, Lamont?
I think the defense, they fed off the offense. I think they see nothing coming from that side, and they were starting to fall into that, man, we're going to the same thing we did last year. We're going to be on the field all day. We got to keep trying to stop these teams, and they're not helping us at all on that side of the ball. And I think if they had a more vocal defensive coordinator that had a little more juice, so to speak, to where he can tell Matt Nagy, man, you need to do something with your guys, man, because we're doing our job for the most part. And even though they started getting gashed by AP, I think that had something to do with them. They didn't feel it from the start. I think Mitch took the spirit out of everybody. I think if the crowd was there, the crowd would have been booing. He would have been getting booed out the building.
One thing I did notice, Lakina and Lamont, I don't know if you guys know this or noticed it, but there was a key stop early in that second half, and they actually did a little report on it during the game. I believe it was Shannon Spake on the sideline report there. They did show Khalil Mack getting vocal with his teammates on the sideline, and I did notice that the defense played a bit better after that point. But again, I'm kind of with you, Lamont. I know. The defense, they're supposed to be separate, but they still kind of feed off each other in a lot of different ways, right? So when
the attitude gonna develop, man. You know how that goes, man. If you gotta carry the weight, and look how long they've been carrying Mitch. Some of them people been carrying Mitch for 3 years.
Yeah.
They tired of carrying him, man. And if y'all constantly showing that y'all not gonna do nothing to change it or do nothing to help it, then why are we carrying him? Like, I like even the rookie. The rookie, he was getting ate up a little bit, but he a rookie. He just got thrown out there.
Well, Jaylen Johnson, you talking about Jaylen Johnson, the cornerback?
Yeah, cornerback.
He actually had a really good game. I mean,
he had a good game.
He got better. He got better as the game went on.
Yeah, I completely agree. He made a couple of really big plays down the stretch there in that fourth quarter. I thought he got better as the game went on, especially for a rookie. I thought he did a hell of a job.
Yeah, definitely. He did better than Mitch.
Yeah. So you back with us? Oh,
Well, just have to work with it.
Yeah. Eddie, you gotta wonder though. I noticed this guy, especially in that front seven. Eddie Goldman, not having Eddie Goldman there, you gotta think that it's looking glaring, his absence.
Yeah, you can notice. Actually, I think he played a bigger part than most people thought he did. I mean,
I wouldn't have completely thought so, and I'm still gonna hold out hope after one game. But you're right. I mean, listen, we all love Akeem Hicks, but it seems like he's getting focused in on more in that interior line, and that's where Eddie Goldman was supposed to take some of that pressure off. I also think when Robert Quinn comes back, I think it's going to be a little easier for that pass rush in that front seven. But I agree.
They a little winded about that defense.
Go ahead.
Danny Trevathan, he too slow to be. And why is he in the middle on them third down plays instead of Roquan Smith? Why do they have him trying to cover that tight end like that? They was gonna run that tight end past him every time. I mean, not knocking Danny's leadership and stuff, but I think he shouldn't be the man trying to cover that route. They should have had Roquan in.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure. I think they kind of caught him in some mismatches there, Lamont. I thought it was some good play call in there with Detroit on the offensive side, but I agree though. Listen, Danny Trevathan, he's a veteran now. He's not out there trying to cover young tight ends, especially the likes of T.J. Hockenson, who's really, really good, probably on his way to a Pro Bowl.
Yeah, he was looking good.
Yeah, he did look good, and I think the defense did get better and better as the game went on. Now I will say this: Kyle Fuller made that big interception that led the Bears to that game-tying touchdown. But how much do you guys think this is coaching? Because yeah, granted, there were no preseason games, and yes, we'll talk about the rest of the NFL in a bit, but, not having, game, practices and stuff like that, how big of a factor do you think that played?
Well, for me personally, again, I mentioned it earlier, just at the top of the show, I think it was a bit of a big factor. Now, I'm not saying the NFL needs a 4-game preseason. I was never on board with that either. But I think at least 1 to 2 games, I think, does help at least, sort of hammer out communication issues. Because I kind of saw a bit of that, especially on the defensive side yesterday. I think when you have inter-squad games and inter-squad practices in the preseason, I think you can kind of work some of those issues and kinks out. And I'm just not specifically talking about the Bears in this case. But, again, I got a chance to watch a few games and see a few games and highlights and stuff. I thought a few teams looked a little bit rusty as far as their flow, both offensively and defensively. So again, I think it was not a big factor, but a small factor.
Yeah, the Bears they never had a chance to practice against a fullback. That's why.
I don't want to hear that.
You don't want to hear that?
I don't want to hear that, Lamont. Don't get me.
I can't help it. They was getting ate up.
No, and you know what? In that particular case, though, Lamont, that's more on Chuck Pagano than not being able to practice against a fullback. That's we're talking about high school football here, okay? If you don't know how to stop an I-form situation, that goes back to in-game adjustments with Chuck Pagano, at least in my opinion. I mean, you're right. They looked like they had no clue what was coming. You're right, but I mean you've got to make in-game adjustments for that. These are professional athletes. I don't want to hear they didn't practice against an I-back. I don't want to hear that.
Yeah. No, and the whole thing with adjustments, with the adjustments, it looks like Trubisky did better when Detroit went man instead of they went away from the zone, which which causes Trubisky to sort of confuse him and sort of overthrow his guys. So that again, those adjustments I think played a factor as well, and also bad clock management on Detroit's part. And look, like I said before, I'm going to keep saying it. I mean, look, you're not going to get a cookie, Bears, and bouquets for beating a Lion, for having to come back from 13 down to be a Lions team that you probably should have beaten by 13. I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, I'm not going to, I'm here, but say, well, win's a win. Well, okay, fine. But again, this was the Lions. They did this type of stuff 3 times last year. They were up.
Now,
So
we having
it's
this
crazy.
conversation next week. We're going to be mad at each other because what if they play the same way against the Giants? They're going to lose.
Oh, no doubt. Well, they not only will they lose, they'll probably get blown out. And that's the point. That's the point we're trying to make here. It's you need a full game. You need a full, consistent game from both sides of the ball.
Yeah, it's unfortunate there. Sis trying to get back in with us. So, anything else from the Giants? From that Lions and the Bears game? From the Bears game that you guys tickled, sort of,
I was happy. I was happy with Adrian Peterson, even though he was playing for the other team. I was happy to see him running. I was. Because the way I feel like his career got interrupted, so I was happy to see him. I hated it was against us, but I was happy to see him do real good.
Yeah, and you know what? Let's see if AP can keep it going in this advanced stage of his career. I think he's only a few yards shy of being 4th on the all-time rushing. I know that's something that he wants to get to. So
they showed it. They had showed the stats. So
right. So what happens here from the Detroit Lions? I mean, we talked about the Bears enough as we sort of shift the talk to a more broad NFL discussion, but I kind of feel bad for Detroit fans, even though I'm a Bear fan, because this was probably literally the same story from Game 1 of last year. I can't remember the score, but they were up on Arizona in Game 1 in the 4th quarter.
16. Yeah, they was up 16 last year.
There you go. And they allowed Arizona to come back and win that game. So, again, I mean, Matt Patricia his seat is getting hotter and hotter and hotter. I know the Lions didn't have some of their key players. I know that, but they're supposed to win that game. And again,
I hate we didn't get a chance to see that rookie play. I want to see that cornerback. They number 1.
Oh yeah. I can't think of his name right now, but
Ohio State boy.
Right.
Yeah, I know you're talking about too.
I want to see him play, so I was a little disappointed at that. But we get another shot at the Lions, and hopefully that'll be another great game for Mitch if he's around, and Anthony Miller.
Yep.
Okay, here comes Sid. We'll try one more time with Sid. Hopefully his connection is back in. I mean, listen, there were some very entertaining games, and there he is.
Can you hear us, Sid?
Yeah, I'm good. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Woo! Yay! Okay, so finally, Sid, give us your thoughts on the Bears-Lions game yesterday.
Well, hopefully it doesn't crap out, but I'll make it quick. Mitchell Trubisky was just like my Wi-Fi. You crapped down the first half. In the second half, Trubisky came through, especially in that 4th quarter. 8 of 10, 3 touchdowns, 21 unanswered points. That first half, Trubisky did not look good. He was overthrowing guys, especially on that 4th down play to Ted Ginn Jr. He threw right behind him, and I believe Walker, of the defensive back for the Lions, almost picked it off. So Trubisky was inconsistent in the first half. Now in the second half, like I mentioned, he started to turn it around a little bit. Actually started to go down the field a little bit. I don't know if you guys paid attention to Jonathan Vilma, who's the new analyst for Fox. He stressed specifically that Trubisky needed to go downfield, and that's exactly what he did in that second half. And he finally decided to use his tight end, Jimmy Graham. Now, Jimmy Graham had a ball he should have caught in the first half, but in the second half, he got a touchdown. He should have got 2 touchdowns, but that's another issue. But Trubisky did redeem himself yesterday. He did not have the greatest performance, but came up big when he needed it most.
What about the defense?
The defense has a lot of work to do. I'm not going to sit here and say that the defense is the worst in the league because I'm not going to go there. We know the potential of this group. Like you mentioned, Lakina, on our last podcast over the weekend, Adrian Peterson likes to do damage, especially against the Bears. He did that yesterday with his first run, 13 yards. He ended up around 86, 88 yards total rushing yards for the game. that needs work. Of course, that you can partially attribute that to Eddie Goldman not playing this year due to COVID. And number two, you can attribute that to also coaching as well because they didn't have a scheme to stop the run. You notice when Adrian Peterson ran, the fullback was in front of him, and then the offensive line block schemed very well. And Adrian Peterson almost went untouched for the first like 6-7 yards of his run. So the Bears' run defense has a lot of work to do. Not to jump ahead a little bit, but if your run defense plays like that against the Lions, what do you think that Saquon Barkley is going to do against you next week at home? Despite what Barkley does tonight against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Like I said, it's going to be very interesting. So we'll have time to talk about that in a little bit. But let's talk about the NFL as a whole. There's some very interesting results yesterday. I'm going to start with Sid, Lamont. I think you, the three of us had the Cardinals beating
Yes.
the Niners. And
Yes.
Look, we've been saying before that Cardinals team, they've improved a lot. You know, they still got a lot to do in the defense, especially that front sevens, but they have shored that up. But they made some big plays late, and you know, I think. Look, I'm not gonna sit here and say they're gonna win a division. I think that's Seattle's, but they could be right there for a wild card spot.
Yeah, I mean, because you look at, you got Adrian, you got Larry Fitzgerald and that Hopkins boy. Like, you got two of the best that complement each other so well. So I think that's going to be hard on a lot of teams.
Looking at that game yesterday with Arizona and San Francisco, Arizona, if you look at their performance in that first half, besides letting that long touchdown run with Raheem Mostert, and there was also another player as well, because I watched the whole game in its entirety via my computer. But besides those couple of plays and the missed field goal, Arizona outplayed San Francisco in that first half. They were tackling guys, they were knocking down passes, and Kyler Murray, despite the one turnover that he had, which was totally not his fault, it was off of the deflection, he played very well. DeAndre Hopkins, as you mentioned, Lamont, he came ready to play yesterday, and he made a big impact in the passing game. Also, look at the running game for the Cardinals. Kenny Drake, I know he scored a touchdown late, but Chase Edmonds is really what makes that passing game from the running back position go. So I like Arizona. That's one of the reasons why I picked them for the upset over the weekend. San Francisco, like I said before, their defense is still going to be good. I know they had three new pieces, but Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be more on his shoulders this year. If you watch that Super Bowl, especially in that fourth quarter last year, if that's going to tell you what this 2020 season is going to look like from him, the 49ers in a whole lot of trouble.
Yep, I agree with you.
Yeah, so I did pick the Niners. Yeah. Go ahead, give it to me. But I thought it was a close game, and the game kind of went exactly how I figured it would. We're all very high on Arizona, though. I know we at least in talks, before the season started and all that. So I'm not surprised that they were able to pull it out. The DeAndre Hopkins trade, I think, is just going to be that much more positive to Murray's development and success. I think they've got an underrated defense that's coming along as well. And listen, Arizona's a hot pick. I mean, I wish I was there to do the divisional previews with you guys, but I think we all think that the NFC West is going to be a bit of a gauntlet with Seattle and the Rams, of course, who were able to, with some luck, get a win on opening night as well. But it's going to be tough in that NFC West. So I think you could potentially see a lot of these close type games that are really entertaining. And again, big ups to Arizona on getting off to a good start.
So what other games? Sort of like we'll do kind of what we did like last season, studs and duds, and for various.
While y'all still talking about games, I can't let y'all get away without giving praise and props to the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints, the New Orleans Saints, and they gonna do what they do. And I think Emmanuel Sanders is gonna make a big difference before this year is all over. Them having Emmanuel Sanders gonna make big dividends in the end. That might help us a lot.
I'll go next. The Washington football team, they upset the Philadelphia Eagles 27-17. If you listen to our last podcast, myself along with Lakina, we talked about the Washington football team's front seven. They are underrated. They're one of the best young defensive lines in the league. They sacked Carson Wentz 8 times yesterday. And the running game was non-existent for Philadelphia. Yes, Carson Wentz used the tight ends early, but their lack of a stud wide receiver is noticeably missing. I know Deshaun Jackson is healthy, but he only played 6 plays in the second half, and he said on Twitter yesterday that he wasn't hurt. Something's going on right there, but give credit to Dwayne Haskins and the Washington football team and their defense. They're my stud from Sunday.
So, yeah, definitely like Washington. Listen, I think Minshew mania is still in full effect in Jacksonville. I've got to give them credit for the comeback against the Indianapolis Colts, led by Phillip Rivers, who still looked a lot like Phillip Rivers.
Yes, he did.
Phillip Rivers throwing a couple of disappointing picks late in the game to help the Jaguars get back into it. But listen, Gardner Minshew had a good game. Again, he's not surrounded with the best talent down there in Jacksonville. I know you guys have talked about how they're trading away the farm. They're basically wanting the team to go winless this year. But
wasn't he 95%? Wasn't he 19 out of 20 or something?
Yep, just gonna say 19 out of 20. I think it was the yards weren't superb. I think it was like 195 yards. But listen, 19 out of 20, 3 touchdowns. I mean, what else more do you want from your quarterback? And again, the Jaguars get their season off to a good start with the win.
And before y'all go, a shout out to Cam too. Cam Newton went to New England and changed the way they look. And if he can stay healthy, I think there's gonna be some problems for Buffalo going down the stretch.
Okay, so this sort of like pains me, but I figured that this would happen, and we should have known that this was gonna happen when we did our picks. Aaron Rodgers threw for 364 yards and 4 TDs. Okay, now granted, the Vikings didn't have Danielle Hunter. That groin has been bothering him the last couple of weeks, but can we give the Packers their props? I mean, they were able to outgain and maneuver. Aaron Jones did some of his stuff as well. But I think I guess Aaron Rodgers. I guess he was hearing it all season when the Packers drafted Jordan Love, didn't really give him any help receiver wise. I mean, Devontae Adams had like a couple of those touchdown catches, but yeah, can we give the Packers some love? I know it pays me to do that, but
I'll get Aaron Rodgers love. I ain't giving the Packers some love. I'll get Aaron Rodgers some. Just Aaron Rodgers.
And also,
I got another.
Go ahead, Sid.
Okay, I got another stud before we go to our duds. Jaylen Johnson, the rookie defensive back from Utah for the Bears yesterday. Yeah, he did look like a rookie in some spots, but he came up with some big plays at the end, including the last play of the game, knocking the ball down and to secure that win for Chicago. I'm giving him my stud.
Yeah, I had mentioned it a little earlier in the show. You were still kind of coming in and out, Sid. But yeah, I mentioned it as well. Listen, Jaylen Johnson, he looked like a rookie, in that first half, but that second half he really made some really big plays, and he was tight on his coverage. I mean, he was right on those receivers' hips throughout most of the game. Again, I think you saw a couple of rookie mistakes, right? But listen, so good on that pick for sure.
So the Bears got 2 good cornerbacks now, then, right? And they got Khalil Mack then, right? We shouldn't struggle with the Lions, and we shouldn't struggle with the Giants if we got a defense like that.
Bonus stud for me, Lamar Jackson, 275 yards, 3 touchdowns. J.K. Dobbins in his debut got 3 rushing touchdowns, and I think the Ravens mean business, guys. We've said it before. They feel like they were sort of an afterthought last year. Their defense actually, slowed them down. I know that's not the defense from the last couple of years for the Browns, but that's a pretty good start if you're the Ravens. Can't have a better start than that.
What did y'all Joe Burrow?
Pretty solid. I watched a little bit of that game against the Chargers. AJ Green, that offensive pass interference.
Yeah, that was good.
That was sort of like kind of thought to be desired, but look. I mean, Burrow had an interception, but he looked good. So mistakes, and that's fine.
I know that he was very mobile like that. Watching him for a little bit at LSU, he didn't have to run like Michael Vick too much, but he showed his legs a little bit yesterday. Now, if you're Cincinnati, you don't want him to do that all the time, and you definitely don't want him to do that if you have a bad offensive line. I thought, looking at his numbers, I thought he did okay. Cincinnati was really in control of that game until the fourth quarter, so not too bad for Joe Burrow. He still has some growing pains just like everybody else, but I think he's going to be okay.
Yeah. All right, guys, duds.
Can I go
I'll
first?
start off this one.
Okay, who wants to go first?
Go ahead, Sid.
Okay, I'll start off first. Watching at the beginning of that Packers-Vikings game via my computer, the national anthem, of course, many teams decided not to come out on the field, and we respect that whether you agree with it or not. But the Green Bay Packers stayed in the locker room, and guess who did the national anthem?
Oh.
I know most of you guys didn't see it.
Who?
The Sounds of Blackness from Minneapolis, Minnesota. For you young kids that don't know, they had hits like The Optimistic and a couple other hits that I'm not thinking about. Shout out Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis for producing and bringing them to the mainstream. Shout out Ann Nasby as well. But don't you disrespect the Sounds of Blackness. You stand out there and listen to those beautiful voices singing harmony dead, okay? That's all I got to say. I know most of America didn't see it because you were watching other games via Fox, but I just wanted to point that out. You show your respect for the hometown favorite Sounds of Blackness. The Vikings did it. If you're the Packers, that's just so total disrespect. I had to get that out. I had to get that out.
Go ahead, Jason.
So, we were just talking about Lamar Jackson and how good the Ravens looked, right? And you guys know this is one of my favorite teams to talk about. I feel bad for Cleveland Brown fans. I at this point feel bad for Cleveland Brown fans. A couple of observations from that game really quick. In the first quarter, I believe, they tried to do a fake punt from their own 30-yard line. Mm-hmm. Needless to say, that did not work.
Yeah.
Also, in the first, not only the first quarter, the first drive of the game, I should have started with this. The first drive of the game, your guys' boy, Baker Mayfield, throws a pick on the first
Not Superman. No, don't talk about Mr. Baker.
One more observation in that game. Also at one point, I think it was in the second half. I can't really remember, but there was a down and distance of a 3rd and 41. Now, that's almost half the length of the entire football field. It's got to be the most Cleveland Brown down and distance that there could ever be in the NFL. They're on their 3rd coach in 3 years. They have Pro Bowl talent across their roster. But I'm going to throw it out there right now. They're probably not going to win more than 4 games this year because they're just a horrible team and franchise.
So OBJ done lost it is what you saying?
3 catches, 22 yards, I believe, were his stats. Lamont, there's your answer.
Ouch. Oh, my gosh. Lamont, who are your duds?
Well, as a team, I was going to go with Cleveland also, but as a player, just one dumb person for the day, the Jamie Collins brother, the Detroit, what was he really thinking at that time, or was he caught up in the moment? Like, which one was it?
How dumb can you be?
I can't believe he actually thought he was going to get away with that, too. Like, really? You headbutted a ref and this stuff. Did you really think you were going to get away with that? Come on, dude.
I wonder how much he's going to cost.
Look, he's gonna get a little email from them saying you've been fined this amount or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Duds for me, the Philadelphia. What the hell happened? You guys gave up 8 sacks.
That front line.
Oh my gosh! What? Really?
That front line, Washington can be scary in about a year. Washington gonna hurt people. Washington, they rough.
Yeah, look. We said it before when we were doing our previews. I mean, that front seven for Washington is actually one of the most underrated spots for them. So I'm not surprised they were able to pull out. But come on, I mean, they threw Carson Wentz around like a rag doll. I mean, what the hell happened? Oh, come on, it's crazy.
I got an honorable mention. What's up with Brady and Gronk? Why he wasn't? Was Gronk hurt, or what y'all think happened with that?
Well, I think the Saints defense is actually pretty good, Lamont.
I agree.
I think they got one of the best units in the NFL. I also think that's the combination of Rob Gronkowski not playing football for a year.
Okay.
I also think that, again, is a combination of a bit of rust issues, with Gronkowski, with the offense of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It was real up and down. For the Bucs, I'm not too worried about that, though. But my honorable mention for Dud of the Week, also one of my favorite people to talk about in the NFL currently, is Mr. Adam Gase.
Oh gosh.
We're still picking on Adam Gase, man.
Well,
he deserves it
to be picked on.
He deserves it. These are the ones. Go ahead, Jason.
He deserves to be picked on. He's gonna get his franchise running back killed. He's gonna get him hurt seriously. And I don't even. I heard his comments after the game. Like I heard and read them, about his whack justification for trying to put him back in the game. But there is no justification for it. Like there just isn't. And if you want to be even halfway competitive, you need all the players you can get. And Le'Veon Bell is probably your best player. And you're jeopardizing, his future, the team's future, and more than likely your future. You're probably not going to finish the season with the Jets.
Nah.
Oh, It's doubtful.
Yeah.
I don't think that's. Yeah, I don't think he'll.
Yeah, I got a bonus dud for you guys. But before then, this is for you, Lamont. Don't worry about it. Adam Gase is going to get his pink slip and his link card at the end of the season when they go 6-10 again. So I'll leave it at
We're
that.
giving out pink. Look, it's week 1 and we giving out pink slips and link cards.
But my bonus dud is the Dallas Cowboys. They had a chance to come back in the fourth quarter to win the game against the LA Rams last night. It's debatable if Michael Gallup and Jalen Ramsey were interfering with each other. Both of them were going patty cake back and forth, but it shouldn't have to come down to that play. You were running the ball okay with Ezekiel Elliott, who scored 2 first-half touchdowns. It's just something about that Dallas offense. Like when they get on the roll, they stay on track, but sometimes it's inconsistent. The Rams defense, outside of Aaron Donald, okay, former Bear Leonard Floyd showed up a couple of times last night, but that Rams defense, outside of those 2 players, they're not really impressive. And Dallas still had a chance to pull out that win. I'm not going to give out any pink slips for that team, but I'm really disappointed in them last night.
Yeah, they were right there for me too. Real quick for these 2 Monday nighters, first up we got the Steelers and the Giants. Where do you guys see that game?
Steelers by 10.
Well, for fantasy purposes, I need the Steelers probably by about 10 or 14 as well, Lamont. I've got Juju and Big Ben starting tonight, so I need a big game from them. I think that'll happen.
That'll happen too. So
I also have the Steelers in this game tonight. The young defense, as we mentioned before, it grew up before our eyes last season when they didn't have a starting quarterback. For the Giants, that secondary is terrible. Hopefully, Big Ben can take advantage of that problem. And as far as the other Monday night game, I picked Denver. I'll stick with that. But I think it's going to be closer than what people think. I want to see if Tennessee can have a balanced offense. We all know that Derrick Henry is going to run the ball, but if he gets shut down, will the game be placed on Ryan Tannehill's hands? And if it does, can he come through? I don't know if he can.
On that second game, I got another distant relative in the league, so I got to go with Denver. Even though he may not make it on the field, but number 75, Denver Broncos, Lloyd Cushenberry. It's a relative, so I'm going with Denver out of that. And I don't believe in Tennessee. I didn't believe in Tennessee last year. I think they just got hot with a good running back. I think that money tends to change people sometimes. And I'm wondering, and I'm hoping it doesn't change him, but we'll see.
I say the
Yeah, I'm looking for the next step to be taken with that Tennessee offense as far as in the passing game. I think they've got the talent to do it. I'm looking for another step taken from A.J. Brown. I think Tennessee's still going to be good. I don't know if they're going to be, AFC championship or, divisional round good again. Like you said, Lamont, they kind of got hot at the right time. But I think Denver's at home, right?
Yeah, then Denver's at home.
I think Denver may surprise some people in that AFC West. Again, I'm really, kind of upset with myself that I missed these divisional previews, but I think they may have something in Drew Lock. But we'll see. I think Denver is going to win this game in a close one.
All right, so that was our NFL breakdowns for week 1.
Lakina?
Yeah, I think we lost our audio.
Oh.
Okay. I just want to give a couple of quick studs going back a little bit, watching other games from around the league yesterday. Charles Davis now with CBS Sports. He's part of the number 2 team with Iron Eagle. The few minutes that I did get a chance to watch them, they do sound well together. I think they're going to be a great broadcast, whatever games that they do from here on out for CBS. So they're going to be great. And Adam Amin, Chicago's very young. He's the new announcer also for the Chicago Bulls television-wise. He did the game with Mark Schlereth yesterday. That was the Seattle-Atlanta game. That was one of the early games for Fox. They really sounded well together as well. I know they had some light humorous things to say to each other back and forth, but I thought that new announcing team sounded great as well.
How did you like Jonathan Vilma, Sid?
Oh, he didn't sound too bad. I know he had to carry Dick Stockton for a while, but
He
had to carry him for a while.
Okay.
By the time Dick Stockton was like,
So wait a minute.
Yeah.
So wait a minute. But here's the thing about these guys, right? Like we know this, so Fox has to know this, right? Dick Stockton, bless his heart, but he has been bad for years. He's been bad for years. Like I mean, can they find a way to ease him like into the next chapter of his career?
He like the mascot now, though. He like the last of the Mohicans for him.
I mean, I guess, but I literally remember Dick Stockton in like the first Fox NFL broadcast. I mean, he's done, and he's been done for years. And I love Jonathan Vilman. I thought you said it correctly. He carried Dick Stockton most of that broadcast, but I mean, bless his heart, he's got to go.
And Stockton sounded so confused when he'd be like, yeah, he was running that 7 route, or he was running the out with the end, and Dick Stockton was like, he threw the ball.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys. You remember the circumstances though, because Kenny Albert was supposed to be doing that game with him.
Mm-hmm.
He got held back because he's been in Canada doing the NHL, so that's why I guess the NFL told him that you got to be quarantined for a couple of weeks, even though he was in a bubble. So that's how that ended up happening. So. But I thought John Vilma sounded fine. I thought, back to your point on CBS, IU and Charles Davis, I think they're going to be great together. So, I think, I think Kenny will make Jonathan Vilma. I think they'll be good together. I think he will be able to do this Sunday's game, so whoever they'll be doing so.
I want to ask you guys real quick, Jason and Lamont in particular. Me and Lakina brought this up on our last podcast. That Fox were going to do virtual fans, but they only selected one game to do it, and that was for the Bears and Lions game yesterday. I want to get you guys' thoughts about that. Did you care for the virtual fans, or did you like it? Did you care for it, or just roll your eyes and say, I can give what either way?
Well, I've been participating in virtual fans for about a month now. The WWE has done it for like the last month. Since they moved all of their things to the Amway Center, they got this thing called the Thunderdome that they do, and they have virtual fans. And the problem that they've been having is that fans putting up signs and different things of people that they don't want to see, or putting up stuff that they shouldn't put up. But other than that, it has helped the wrestling product out a lot because it actually gives it a live feel because they are literally celebrating and watching at the same time. So I'm actually a fan of it. Like, and if it's something that we can log in to do it, I will do it like I do it with the wrestling.
Yeah.
So,
But as far as the Bears game yesterday, Lamont, did you care for it or not?
I mean, it was okay, you know, and I don't,
Okay.
and I don't ask y'all this also. If other teams are letting 16,000 in or something, what? Because Kansas City sounded loud the other night when they had their building. I don't see why Chicago can't let in 16,000 in the cold.
Yeah, I know Jacksonville did it too yesterday for their home opener against the Colts. They let about 15,000, 16,000 in as well. Jason, I want to get your thoughts about virtual fans for the Bears-Lions game from yesterday.
So honestly, I will say this: as far as the virtual fans, I'm probably I would admit that I probably missed some shots that they may have shown because I don't really recall seeing a whole lot of the virtual fans. What I did notice, and I thought was really well done, at least in my opinion, was the audio, the stadium audio. I thought that was really well done by the audio team out there in Detroit.
Yeah.
That gave it more of a game, experience game feel than more so the virtual fans. Again, I kind of didn't notice. Maybe I'm just missed the shots that they took when they were taking them. I don't know. I can't recall seeing any of them in that particular game, but yeah, that just a really quick touch on it. I know that's part of the concern we had mentioned is that fans putting up stuff that there's objectionable material, but I didn't notice, like I said, the virtual fans, but the audio, the crowd, I thought was really well done.
How do y'all feel about people going back? I mean, how you feel about the 16,000 or so going in?
It's going to depend on
I think that it will work, and obviously it depends on each state's guidelines if they meet the positivity rate of the slowing down the coronavirus. Me personally, selfishly, I'd like to see Governor J.B. Pritzker and Mayor Lori Lightfoot allow that right now, but I know it doesn't work that way like a snap of a finger. But when these stadiums hopefully open back up and hopefully open back up soon, it's going to be a limited capacity anyway. So if you allow between 16,000 and 20,000, it should work. Like you mentioned before, Lamont, in Kansas City this past Thursday, most of those fans were spread it out throughout the first level in the upper deck as well. This is where it's going to have to be done. And me and Lakina and you as well, Jason, we talked about it for the months leading up to this, that if fans were allowed back in, everybody's not going to come in right away. So you look at what happened in Jacksonville yesterday.
Oh no, we lost it again.
Yeah. So
I'll just pick up what he said about the Jaguars and stuff like that. It's going to be weird, though, because there are going to be some states where you're going to be seeing people, about 15,000, 16,000. But then again, here in Chicago, you're not going to see any. I mean, it was weird seeing in New Orleans in the Superdome and no one there. That was weird. So, I mean.
But they had a heck of a party on the street. You should have seen the outside. Bourbon Street. Bourbon Street has been full, period. Even with the restrictions, somehow Bourbon Street has remained open and relatively full.
That sounds about right, I guess.
You know how they is, man.
It's insane, but yeah, I mean, it's gonna be, like I said, it's gonna be very interesting to see what happens with all of that, because it was weird in some spots, but if that's just how it's going to be, that's how it's going to be. I mean, unfortunately, that's just the new world we're living in.
Because Detroit had some fans in the upper stands. They had them all of those people that played in those championship banners that they had up. They had them sitting in the upper decks in their shirts. They had on blue shirts. One of them had on dark blue. The other ones had on light blue.
That was the virtual fans.
Oh, that was the virtual people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, yeah, that was pretty nice there.
All right. So, guys, you want to take a couple of minutes break to kind of stretch and sort of, do what you need to do. So we'll come back and we'll talk some history that was made last night for the Cubs. And also, White Sox now have the best record in the AL. And
Yes.
Woohoo!
I know
Yes.
that makes it happy. And also college football, we'll see how that looks. And also the NBA playoffs, are the Clippers in trouble? So for Jason, Sid, and Lamont, I'm Lakina. And we'll be right back with more Second City Sports Zoom style.
All right.
Zoom style.
Zoom, 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 zoom.
A little sneaky there.
A little bit. All right, folks, welcome back to Second City Sports Zoom style.
Zoom style.
Zoom.
so God. I'm the
You
kid
used
who
to watch
gave
that,
you
right? On channel. You used to
we'll
watch
work on that.
7?
We'll work on that. Once again, I'm Keena McGee. You follow me at Keena McGee on Twitter, at Keena_McGee on the Instagram.
And
You can follow yours truly, Sid Kid 80 on Twitter and Instagram at Sid Kid 80. Once again, at Sid Kid 80. That's SIDKID 80. That's SIDKID 80. You can follow this show, Second City Sports, from War on Anchor. Wherever you download your podcast, you just simply go on Anchor, which kicks you over to Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, Apple. We're everywhere. Wherever you download your podcast, just search for War on Anchor. Also, we on iHeartRadio. Please download the iHeartRadio app and search for War on Anchor. That's WARR on Anchor. And you can access this lovely program.
And I'm Lamont, and you can follow me at Lamont Scott on Facebook and Lamont Scott 69 on Instagram, on Twitter, Vito6969.
And I am Jason Pfeiffer. Just made it back in time. You can follow me at Truth and Reason _ on the Twitter.
All right, guys. So a lot to get to today in this second hour. So let's start with baseball. Some history was made with the Cubs. Alec Mills, who was actually a walk-on over at Tennessee Martin a few years ago, but I think he became all conference, and now he has a no-hitter. So Jason, you were excited. Oh, stop it, Lamont. Oh gosh, I don't know if it was being or not, but
that was you, Jason.
Appreciate that. Well, listen, yeah, I mean, it's certainly, I think, something to brag about that the 2 no-hitters in baseball this season have been thrown by Chicago players. So, of course, I'm referring to Lucas Giolito throwing the first no-hitter. Alec Mills gets the second one, and you love stories like this, right? Again, like you alluded to, Lakina, college walk-on, becomes an all-conference player, sort of what I call like a shuffle or a fringe player, has made multiple appearances in the big leagues, but could get shipped down to the minors and has made a few trips like that throughout his career. Has made the starting squad the gates for this shortened 60-game season for the Cubs. And, been up and down. Pretty good start. I think he went like 2-1, 3-1 first couple of starts, 4 starts there. Had a couple of bad outings, but came back in this last one and took advantage of a offense this year and made the most of it. So congratulations to him.
Yeah, I actually am proud of him. Like a couple of games ago, I think he struck out like 5 or 6, maybe about right before he went on that losing streak. He had a really, really good game, and his stuff moves really well.
Mm-hmm.
Like his stuff moves really well. So I was like, And remember they was talking about, should we bring Quintana back because he was doing so well, and should we drop Chapman, or what should we do? Actually, he looked like if he can give me 2 or 3 more outings like that, I would want to keep him in that rotation. And I was thinking when he threw that no-hitter yesterday, all I was thinking was that this would be the season where both Chicago teams make the World Series and we can't go to the World Series. I said that was like, just pain ran through my body. When everybody was celebrating the no-hitter, I was thinking like, we can't even go see the World Series when they meet each other. And I felt like so bad at that moment. But otherwise, man, history, I love history in my city. So I'm all about it.
Yeah, congratulations to him for throwing that no-hitter yesterday. I actually caught it the last 2 innings after I get a notification on my phone. Thank goodness the Bears game was already done and completed. Watching that ninth inning, Jim Deshaies, the TV analyst for the Cubs, I thought that Bird got squeezed on a couple of calls, and it actually Jim DeShays actually agreed with me, but he persevered through it, threw the key pitches at the right time. Those Milwaukee hitters were off balance from the fifth inning on. And so those things, I can only imagine they are very hard to do. And so the Cubs defense was on point yesterday. Javi Baez made the final out, and you just got to give it up to him. And like you said, Lamont, actually, Lakina brought this up a few weeks ago. Wouldn't it be something if the Cubs and the Sox did meet up in the World Series, but we as fans cannot go? Whichever team loses, they'll just have to throw whatever old items in their house in front of the TV or something. I don't know. But wouldn't it just be crazy just to wrap up the sports year in 2020? I'm just saying.
It will be fitting, right?
Well, no, what happened? One of them, the other one out of the playoffs. No, they play each other at the end of the season.
Right.
Yeah, in a couple of weeks. Yep.
Playoffs, that'll just intensify the North Side South Side rivalry forever if that happens.
And well, also too, I think for the confidence wise for the team. I mean, they lost a tough one on Friday. They were able to come back. You know, Jason Hayward hit that big two-run home run off Hader who was unhittable.
He having a great year too. I love Jason Hayward, even though he just took a lot of money from us. But I like Jason Hayward as just a person to have on your team.
And that's true. And also they had this great gem, with Alec Mills. And also the offense looked really good yesterday too. So overall, I think confidence-wise, I think you got to be feeling pretty good if you're a Cubs fan. And also too, everyone else in your division has lost, so that's why you're able to kind of have to keep that healthy lead.
Yeah, and in such a unique situation like this, again, it's all about just winning the games you can. No matter how you can win them. I know some detractors of the Cubs will say, well, their division is not really good. The St. Louis Cardinals, they've been, hobbled by the coronavirus, and they've had to play a lot of double hitters. And that's true. That's all well and true. But again, this is, you can't fault the schedule here, folks. You know what I mean? So it's the Cubs are right where they are. They're a good team. They're not great. They can get great. They've got a couple weeks to do it. I'm not saying it's impossible. But they've really got to shore some things up. I'm still concerned about John Lester, even though he had a hell of a performance. I think that was the Saturday night game, can't remember. Lost a tough one, 1-0 there. Had a bounce back performance, but overall I am still very, very, very concerned about John Lester. It doesn't look like Quintana or Chatwood will be back for the stretch run. I'm just not sure. I haven't been hearing a whole lot about the status of their injuries. So they need some arm help. And if Alec Mills has, quote unquote, turned the corner, it'll be that much of a great sign, because they're going to need somebody behind Yu Darvish and Kyle Hendricks. I can't. If you've got a problem with Yu Darvish this year, you're just not watching baseball. I kind of predicted this coming off of his second half last year, but he has been lights out. There's just no other way to put it. Kyle Hendricks has been Kyle Hendricks. I know he struggled. I think the start before last he struggled a little bit, but I'm not worried about him at all. He's going to do what he's going to do. So they're going to need a third guy, and if Alec Mills can step up and be that guy, then that'll be great.
You know what I think changed Yu Darvish, man? I think when the whole scandal came out and he realized that it wasn't him that had messed all those games up in LA, I think that changed his whole psyche. I think it just, I know that seems really minute and that's like, okay, but I think that's what did it. He realized it wasn't him that was making the mistakes and that he was really making his pitches. They just knew what his pitches were. So I think that's what changed Yu Darvish.
You might be right there, Lamont. You just might.
It's an interesting point. It's a very interesting point.
You might be right about that. Going to the South Side, the White Sox swept the Detroit Tigers, doing what you're supposed to do, being a team that's you're better than, and now they're in first place. They're just ahead of the Rays and the A's for top record in the American League. Sid, I'll start with you. What do you think about your White Sox at this point as we go into the last couple of weeks of this crazy season?
Jose Abreu has been on fire. If he's not your front runner for American League MVP, I don't know who is. We going back to Oakland, Matt Chapman. That's a huge injury for that team. As I told people outside of here, if you're the White Sox, you don't want to face Oakland in the playoffs. Now you may have to face them, but we'll talk about that down the road. Now, the White Sox, as you mentioned, Lakina, they did what they had to do in sweeping a bad Tigers team. The question is now, I've been asking this all season, are you that team that are going to take the next step? You did what you're supposed to do and beat up the Sisters of the Poor like Detroit and Kansas City. Can you beat Cleveland? Can you beat Minnesota? This is a big 4-game series against Minnesota starting tonight. You have Dylan Cease going tonight. You have Dane Dunning, I believe, go on Tuesday, and then Giolito on Wednesday. Thursday has not been announced as of this podcast. So you have the pitching to do it. I know Dallas Keuchel is on the injury list for the moment, but you still should have enough to at least beat the Twins 3 out of 4. I'm going to put the pressure on the Sox to beat the Twins 3 out of 4. They should have taken 2 out of 3 at Target Field a couple of weeks ago, but that didn't happen. I'm putting the pressure on this team to take at least 3 out of 4. You shouldn't do worse than at least split this 4-game series on the South Side starting tonight.
You know, I look at this series, and I was talking to someone else about it, as a grow-up series. This series right here is the grow-up series. And I also, side note, think that this series may determine Renteria's job next year. I know it's way off and it's way thinking, but they may feel like he can't get them over that hump if he can't get them over these little humps going into next year, because they know they have, quote unquote, the talent almost to get through. So I'm not sure. I think they need to show that they can beat these teams for him to keep his job and for them to give them the confidence if they want to go forward in the playoffs. And as far as them, like, they have beaten, like you say, everybody they supposed to beat, but they kind of have not beaten those teams that they are used to losing to. You know, they've been losing to these teams for a very long time, and I think that's still in a lot of them head. But we gonna see, man. I'm definitely pulling. I mean, it's not. We can't use winning ugly no more because they used that already. So we call it hitting really hard and ugly or something. But we gonna do so. We gonna see though.
I will say this about the attitude of the White Sox. Unlike in years past, even though there were many players that been up on the club, they were learning on the job. This year's group in particular, they have the confidence, they have the swag, and they have the attitude that they can beat anybody at any time. Now, we'll go back and say this. They did beat the Cubs 2 out of 3 a few weeks ago when they swept the Kansas City Royals. So they did respond there. Like you said, Lamont, this is a grow-up series. They're 1 game ahead of the Twins for that. If you want to put distance between yourself and the Twins, you have to, like you said, grow up and take no worse than 3 out of 4 tonight. A split will be okay, but if you wanted to go to that next level, you have to take at least 3 out of 4 games here against the Twins. You have them in your own backyard. Minnesota, I know they're coming out of their struggles a little bit, but you got them right where you want them. If you want to put this Central Division race to bed, you go beat Minnesota at least 3 out of 4 this week.
Yeah, Sid and Lamont, I mean, you pretty much echoing my thoughts and sentiments about the Sox this upcoming week. And I was going to ask you before you brought it up, Sid, is this a 3 out of 4 type of series that you were looking for? And again, you started with that right off the bat. I mean, you said everything I wanted to say. They've got Dylan Cease starting it off tonight, and of course they got Dunning and Giolito on Wednesday. So this is a prime opportunity. And like the term Lamont used, it's a grow-up series, right? We saw a little bit about this. I mean, you know, I don't want to draw the comparisons. I know some White Sox fans will groan when I say this, but you draw those comparisons to that 2015 Cubs team a little bit, right? When they were still just kind of up and coming and surprising everybody a little bit, because people thought that they were still a little ways away as far as competing. They were a little early on the schedule. I see a lot of the same similarities with this White Sox team, and they had a lot of those same series in that season to determine how far they were going to go. Those series against the Cardinals where they ended up being ultra competitive, especially coming down the stretch in the season. Some of those series with, you know, the Pirates, who were still a good team back then. These guys were going back and forth in these series, and I can't help but draw some of those comparisons. It's a big series. It's a big series. Now it doesn't, I don't want to jinx it, but if they come out and they sort of wet the bed here, it's not the end of the world, right? But you definitely, this is sort of a litmus test type of series to really see where you're at coming into the home stretch of the season.
It'll be very interesting, though. Like you guys said, I mean, this is definitely sort of a kind of like a maker. Not, I don't think this is necessarily a make or break series for them, but I just think that if you at least split it, then you can say, oh, you're right back where you were. You can think about what happens those last 2 weeks of the season, because I think they face each other again, I think, one more time. So we'll see what happens there. And this is going to be exciting. And I think Minnesota's won 3 in a row, so they're kind of coming off a nice little stretch as well. So this is going to be very interesting. Something's got to give here. We'll see. Think about baseball as a whole. If you look at no, go ahead. Who's the? Go ahead.
I said, I hope it's not us that have to give. That's all.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. That is true. That is true. We'll start in the AL East. These are kind of, there's sort of like a log jam here. It looks to be between the Rays, the Jays, and the Yankees. So where do you guys see the AL East?
I'll start. Can you imagine the Yankees not making the playoffs?
Boy, not at the start of the season. That was for sure, Lamont. Not at the start.
I don't know what they will do in New York if they don't make the playoffs. Like, I think they would have to reevaluate their whole financial structure if they don't make the playoffs. I mean, the Yankees got a whole bunch of killers on their team that will demolish balls, but they tend to stay hurt. And they rotate. It's like they rotate being hurt. Like, you be hurt you gonna be hurt for 2 weeks. It's like it's almost pre-planned. And I don't want to say I would be a little bit like happy if they don't make the playoffs, but yeah, I'm actually rooting for like the smaller people. Like, I want the Torontos and the Rays, the Rays. I want people like, the Jays, the Rays, people of those nature to make the playoffs and make them see that it's all about playing baseball and not buying baseball.
Ooh.
I would be okay with that.
Well,
we should call them Moneyball.
Well, yeah. Well, the way it's set up is that the Yankees will be able to get in, and I think with both Judge and
Stanton.
And when Stanton coming back, I think that'll give them a nice little jolt that they need. So.
Well, for me, the more concerning part of it is, I mean, because listen, at this point, you've got to be used to Judge and Stanton getting hurt. I mean, I just have to put it out there. Yeah, but again, like I say, you got to be used to it at this point. The more concerning part for me is Garrett Cole, who had a bounce back performance in his last performance, but he was getting rocked in his last 2 or 3 starts. He was getting hit hard. So if they don't even have their ace at the top of the rotation, they're not going to do anything.
But I think that comes from that New York pressure. It's pressure. It's pressure when you're in all that money. It's not only the money, but now you got the New York media. You got that New York pressure. And if you look at it, if you go back, I mean, I haven't done the research. It might give me something to do tonight. And everybody that they sign for really big deals, do they be a little rocky that first year? I'm going to have to go take a look. But from my, distant memory, I think it does take some time to adjust to that New York media. So I remember, and I don't want to date myself, but I remember when Dave Winfield first went to the Yankees. And he had a rough start at first. It took them a minute to catch on with Dave Winfield. And then he eventually became Dave Winfield again. But, that was a while ago. I don't know if y'all rock with Dave.
Yeah, of course.
But,
we love Dave Winfield. Yes.
Yeah, but he had a rocky start when he first went over there. So, I think it's that whole New York atmosphere, and it takes some adjusting. But if Garrett Cole, like you say, ain't right, then they don't stand a chance.
Here's the thing about the Yankees. I know they had injuries throughout the course of the season. Last year, they were able to get away with it because they had much more depth. This year, not so much. Everything's in a hurry because of the shortened 60-game schedule. In their last 5 games, they were 5. They scored 28 runs, and their starter ERA is at $1.28. So the Yankees are starting to turn it around a little bit. But just like the White Sox, you're beating up the sisters of the poor. I know Toronto's improved a little bit, but you beating up teams like Toronto and Baltimore and Boston. So, like you guys say, you can't help but who's on your schedule. Now, going back to the Tampa Bay Rays for a minute, Lamont, I've been preaching just about all season, and a little bit last year too. Tampa Bay, they're a bunch of no-name guys that just come through when they have to, and give manager Kevin Cash credit for keeping that squad together. Now, we'll get to Oakland in a little bit, but my new team, if you don't want that, you do not want to play in the playoffs, and that's the Tampa Bay Rays. And talking about the Yankees for the last few minutes, they struggled against Tampa Bay this year. You know, those two are the division rivals in the AL East, and once you get into a bigger field in the playoffs, I do not want to face Tampa Bay.
I agree.
Interesting, the AL East. We talked about the Central, but I would say Cleveland might also still have something to say about that too.
Yeah.
Right there, 4.5 back, so they may have something to say about what happens in the AL Central. Now, speaking of Oakland, like you just said, Matt Chapman is I don't know if he's gone for the year, but he's going to be on the IL, so that's a big loss for them. He was one of the main reasons why Oakland's been able to get where they are, so that's a big problem. And I know the Astros, they're still right there, 6.5 back. So what do you guys think about the West?
Yeah, boy, I feel so bad for Oakland fans. I really do, because we've talked about it ever since last season, and the same thing with the Rays. Two up and coming teams in the American League, teams that you wouldn't necessarily want to see in the playoffs, terms that we've used before. And it's just so unfortunate. I don't know the nature of the injury, but I hope he can get back as soon as possible. They'll need him as far as the Oakland A's go. The Astros, I know they had their much hyped series against the Dodgers over the weekend. Outside of that comeback game, I think that was on Saturday night. I think the Dodgers took 3 out of 4, 2 out of 3. Can't remember exactly. But they're a few games back from being right back in the middle of this thing as well. And they've had a slew of injuries as well, obviously with Justin Verlander going down, Jose Altuve on the IL, a few other players. George Springer wasn't playing well before he got hurt. He's starting to turn it around now, so we'll see what happens with the Houston Astros going forward. But let's see. I think it's kind of all about now just to see if the A's can hang on. Because, again, the Astros, they're just a few games away from being right back at the top of the division.
And I think if it come down to a tight series with Oakland and Houston, and like a 2 out of 3 to get in or something of that nature, or the final series come to that, I would put my money on Houston simply, especially if Chapman's not back. If Chapman's back, I'll ride with Oakland. But if he's not there, and they have to face even an injured Houston team, I think Houston, just from their ways, wise, and experience, will overwhelm the young boys.
I don't know if Houston can turn it around at this point. I know, like you said, Jason, that they're a few games back, but I think Oakland may hang on to win that West. They had to have a monumental collapse between now and September 27th when the regular season ends. But, excuse me, I think Oakland will hang on, but Houston, you got to win, especially on the road, and they haven't done that.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting in the West. So going to the National League for a second, in the East, you got the Braves, kind of running away with it a little bit, but I think they'll probably end up winning that division. Marlins and Phillies, they have one more game tonight. Philly needs that to sort of split that series so they can be sort of right there on the cusp. Where do you guys see the NL East?
Yeah, it looks like the Braves are gonna hang on there. Ronald Acuna Jr. is a future MVP candidate, if not one right now. They're dealing with a few injuries there in Atlanta, but they're starting to get healthy. I think it's just about them. I don't, we've talked about seeing some weird sort of surprising up and coming teams in this shortened season. The Miami Marlins still continue to be that. At this point, they're in the playoffs, folks. I don't know if you guys know this, but if the season ended today, they are in. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle the next, 14 days or so here. Philly's trying to hang on. They had gotten hot, over the past week or so previous, but have sort of evened out. So we'll see what happens there with the Philadelphia Phillies and the Miami Marlins. But to me, it's all about Atlanta and holding on to that lead.
I'm gonna say Atlanta, and because what you said, they got a future MVP, and I don't think he's gonna let them lose it. I think he's gonna rally them troops, and I think he's gonna get them across that little hump. So I'm gonna stick with Atlanta, man.
As I said for the last few weeks, the Atlanta Braves, this is their division to lose, and I think they're going to hang on. Philadelphia, as I said last week on the podcast, they don't have enough starting pitching to survive. And Jake Arrieta got roughed up a couple of weeks ago, and I just don't see it. The offense is inconsistent. I know Bryce Harper is having a sort of a bounce back here, but I just don't trust them finishing up down the stretch. I know they had the issues with the Marlins this past weekend, and I think they have the right manager in Joe Girardi for the job. I think they'll be better off next year. But as far as this season is concerned, it's going to be tough for them to finish out for the division. But I don't know if they're even going to sneak in as a wild card. If they do make it to the playoffs, obviously it's going to be a wild card because Atlanta's just is a class above the rest of everybody else in that division.
We talked about the Central. Let's go West. The Dodgers, they're kind of running away, but the Padres have won 7 in a row. Where do you guys see the West?
So
you win it because the Padres just can't keep hitting home runs. They can't keep. It's gonna stop eventually. It cannot continue. And I just believe maybe next year, but it will not continue this year. And if the Dodgers don't win, it's gonna be problems in LA.
Listen, you guys know how I feel about the Los Angeles Dodgers. I've been saying this for going on 4 years now, Lakina, and you know how I feel about LA. Do it in the playoffs. Just do it in the playoffs, and I got nothing else to say about them.
So you like Milwaukee?
Well, yeah, but we were talking about earlier about the Oakland A's and a team that you might not want to see in the playoffs. And guess what? That's the San Diego Padres in the National League. Nobody wants to see them. Nobody at all. Because they, as of this point right now, they have no weaknesses in that lineup apparently. And if they get runners on, the next guy is going to hit the ball over the fence. So what I love about what I'm seeing from their offense is the fact that they are not wasting opportunities. They're getting runners on and they're getting them across the plate. And again, that is a method for madness if you're an opposing pitcher in a playoff situation, because that means you got to be that much more on your game. The San Diego Padres they're just exciting. They're exciting to watch, and a young team, and maybe a little early too. But again, you don't want to see them in the playoffs. Not that lineup. I certainly don't.
No, me neither. I don't want them to play the Cubs.
And it's a possibility.
That could happen. That could happen too. The way it's set up.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's why I said it. I don't want them to play the Cubs.
Just like 1984 all over again, but that's a whole other issue.
Bring back the Steve Garvey memories. No, Steve Garvey.
Here's the thing about the Padres. You have a number one starter in Mike Clevenger, who they picked up via trade at the trade deadline from Cleveland. That's what you need going into a short playoff series. As I said before, for the last few weeks, Fernando Tatis, he should be your leader for NL MVP. His cohort, Mookie Betts of the Los Angeles Dodgers. You need players like that to come up with key hits and key situations come playoff time. I agree with you, Lamont. You can hit all the home runs you want during the regular season, but when it gets to the playoffs, it's all about pitching, it's about timely hitting, but most importantly, it's about defense. If you don't have those three things, you're not going to advance. You're not going to win the World Series. So, like you said, Jason, San Diego is a good team. I do not want to play them if they're clicking on all cylinders. I'm not saying they're going to win the whole thing. I'm not counting them out, but that could be a scary team. And another thing, as I call Lamont on the sneak tip, if the Dodgers don't win this year, you'll be the first person to give Dave Roberts his pink slip and his link card.
His link card. And his link card.
Oh, my God.
They got too much over there. And you know what I was hoping with the Dodgers? Mookie Betts can actually change the Dodgers' culture, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
He has already.
If they get with that, maybe it can happen, but we got to see, man. Like Jason said, they got to prove it when it counts. Show me some October baseball. Show me some November baseball, because right now they tend to choke, not to mention Milwaukee again, more than them.
Exactly. So that's going to be the big key there down the line for the Dodgers. So should be interesting these last couple of weeks of the season. So off to the NBA hardwood we go. And, and I heard that, Lamont. Our Eastern Conference Finals are set. You got Miami and Boston. So I'll start this off. Boston, I apologize. I'm sorry. Just the Jason Tatum just shot lights out. Kemba Walker, Marcus Smart also did very, made the big shots, and also the defensive stops when they needed. They're going to be playing a Miami team. Our buddy Matt Peck from Bulls Outsiders is not very happy with this matchup. I know he's not. So see this Eastern Conference Finals.
I will start for a couple of reasons. One, I've been big on Jason Tatum since he told LeBron James, "I'm a man." And that was 2 years ago in the playoffs when they was playing and Jason was all in his face. He had to tell LeBron, "I'm a man." And since Jason did that, I believed in Boston to a certain extent. I didn't like the way they had all of the same players playing the same positions, and I still think they need a little bit more up front, like in the middle, so to speak. Williams, Tice, they doing what they do, but they need to solidify it down there in some form or fashion. And the Miami Heat, wouldn't it be something if Jimmy Butler go to the finals? I'm just saying. Chicago is, John Paxson and Gardner got to be looking at themselves and realizing how stupid they have been for so many years. And you look at it like, if Miami go, I don't think Miami got enough to get past Boston. Even with Jimmy Butler pulling off his heroics, I think Jason Tatum would eventually outplay him.
So I know I haven't spoken with you guys in a few weeks, so let me just give a quick recap of how I've seen things play out in this Eastern Conference, especially when it comes to the Miami Heat. I thought we would see something weird in the NBA bubble in these playoffs. I want to make the quick point that I think Milwaukee may have been the one team that actually needed a home court advantage. That's not necessarily an excuse because you're a professional team. You were the leader of the Eastern Conference. You shouldn't have been manhandled by Miami the way you were. But I think they were a team that needed that home court advantage. First quick point. To Miami now. This is sort of actually more of an indictment on Milwaukee as well. But my point is going to spin forward. Just bear with me a bit. Boston is going to defend the three-point line way better than Milwaukee did. Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson, they are great. Well, I'm not going to call them great players yet. They're really good players. They're young players.
They're good shooters.
They can shoot the ball. There is no doubt about that. But on way too many times, they were left wide open at the three-point line. Boston is elite defensively. I thought I would have said that about Milwaukee, but apparently not, especially when it comes to defending the three-point line. Boston is not going to let that happen. I predict that that's just not going to happen. And when you couple that, when you have a go-to player like Jason Tatum, future MVP candidate as well, I like Boston in the series. I think Miami can take it to 6, but again, if you defend the three-point line, Miami is really, really vulnerable, and I think Boston is going to be able to do that. Even though Jimmy Butler is a huge difference maker for that Miami team, I love his leadership there. But I think their luck runs out in the Eastern Conference Finals. I like Boston. I like Boston in 6.
I got to agree with you. I'll give Boston in 6, too.
Or did he freeze again? Oh, he froze again. So I'll do my prediction. Yeah, I'll say Heat in 7, just because I think, look, weird things are happening in this bubble. So I'm taking the Heat in 7. So that's
look at Lakina.
I'm stepping out. All right, going to the West. Speaking of 7 games, the Nuggets were able to beat the Clippers, and they were able to force the game 7. Where do you guys see this in the West? And as LeBron and AD and the Lakers get another day of rest?
You know what? They shouldn't have did it, because Jamal Murray can go off for 50 on you and they'll lose. If Paul George have a bad game shooting and Jamal have a good game, the Clippers they could lose. They really could. So if I had to pick, I'm going to pick the Clippers simply because they have the better players. They have the better team. But if they're not shooting properly, and I really mean Paul George, if he's not shooting properly, then Denver will be going, man.
Well, you guys also know how I feel about Paul George, and that was a Paul George game. That on Sunday, that was a Paul George game. Prime opportunity for him to actually prove his worth, put his stamp on this series, and of course he didn't do it.
Plenty of games like that in this bubble. He not showed up a few times in this bubble.
Well, Lamont, and I know you know NBA basketball, but isn't this what he does? This is what he does.
Yeah, you got a point.
He can do all of this stuff in the regular season, and he can be this great player, two-way player in the regular season, but you can't have, single point efforts and 11 and 12-point efforts with I'm saying numbers here because I don't have the stats in front of me, but that's
about right.
Type of stats, right? Like 2 for 12s from the field. You can't be that inconsistent when everybody's loading up on Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard is still showing his worth, by the way.
Yeah.
What's concerning to me is the lack of bench production from the Clippers, because that was what we lauded, before the shutdown and actually, into this bubble. They need to step it up a little bit more with their secondary production. So that's concerning for me. I still like the Clippers in a game 7, but going forward, I mean, I would have thought this would have been sort of a breeze, and I guess we're just not giving Denver that much credit. I mean, maybe is that what we need to start doing? We're the 3 seed in the West, right, Lakina?
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
but it's not that. It's just that Denver got a lot of holes when you look at it. Or do they? It looks like they got holes, but like you said, maybe they don't. And that's why I kind of went with the Clippers, because overall they're the better team. They should win. But like you say, if a Paul George have a Paul George's night and Jamal Murray show that he's going to be a scorer like he showed all the way in college from time, he had these brief flashes where he just showed you that he can just score when he wants to, and then he just say, well, okay, I'm going to chill. I'm not going to be like this. And I think if he develops that mentality, that could be dangerous going forward.
Yeah, I've got the Clippers winning, and I'm not really confident about that now, because it feels like the Clippers have been kind of sleepwalking through this whole playoff bubble, if you will. So, I mean, I hope Paul George has a good game tomorrow night, but I don't know. I just have no confidence in him. And look, Jokic is showing that he's actually pretty good. So. So and there's Sid. I mean, okay.
Do the Clippers got any technical fouls? I'm just saying, like, it's that gritty, tough attitude that we're gonna win this game. Have you saw that? Like you say, sleepwalking. I haven't seen that out of the Clippers. Period.
Yeah, I was just gonna bring up that point, Lamont. The Clippers, they had this turn it on, turn it off mentality all season long. They're worried about the Lakers. They won't say it publicly, but they're worried about the Lakers. Instead of worried about future opponents down the road, you have to take care of business now. They got away with it in the Dallas series, and it looks like it may bite them in the butt in this series against Denver. And looking at that game, outscored them 30-16. So that shows you a lack of focus right there. They need to bring it in Game 7, because if they don't, I'm not going to say people are going to get traded and heads are going to roll, but there will be a lot of questions in this turning on, turning off mentality. Not everybody can pull that. The Clippers have a better roster, but you haven't won a damn thing yet, so you can't afford to turn on, turn it off like the Warriors have done in the past, to a lesser extent the Chicago Bulls back in the 90s. You haven't earned the right to claim anything that you haven't earned yet. So the Clippers, the pressure is really on the Clippers in this Game 7.
No, especially knowing that the Lakers are waiting for you too. And
exactly.
Ron well rested. Forget about it.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, because I ain't the biggest Laker guy. Well, I'm not gonna say I'm not a Laker guy. I ain't the biggest LeBron guy like that, but he may walk his way right on to a championship. He may, and it's not because of him. It's because when Anthony Davis decided to be Anthony Davis, he looked completely unstoppable. I mean, sometimes he go through spurts in them games, and you be like, man, who gonna guard this man? And I think that's what the Lakers need going forward. Even like after LeBron, I think LeBron, he may even leave on top if they win this one and get a team to AD. which wouldn't be a bad thing for me, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, and that's another factor as well, right? LeBron's rest, because listen, I mean, he's in his 17th, 18th year, so that's a factor in these playoffs. And again, it just goes back to the disappointment in the Clippers for me, because I thought this was a head-on collision course, and it still could be, right? I mean, obviously, the Clippers could win Game 7, and we'd move on, and we'd have a battle for LA in the Western Conference Finals, which is what we all want. But they've got to get it in gear really, really soon, because like we've all been saying, it's just a sleepwalking type of thing that we see with the LA Clippers. And if they come out, with a certain lack of focus in this Game 7, it could be over quick.
Yeah. What if Paul George is waiting to get to the Lakers to become Paul George?
Well, they got to get there first.
Yeah, exactly. They have to get there. That's been the problem. They're thinking ahead, like Sid said. So we'll see what happens. We got a few more minutes left. Let's go to the college gridiron. I watched a little bit of the Clemson Wake game. Clemson looks really good.
Yes.
I mean, they look amazing. Shout out to Arkansas State for beating Kansas State, and also Louisiana for beating Iowa State. Yeah.
Yeah.
Take that, Big 12. Take that.
Now, did anybody watch the Navy Duke game?
I didn't.
No.
What? I mean the Notre Dame Duke game.
Oh, okay.
I watched a little bit of it.
Why was Notre Dame looking like they were struggling so hard with Duke for a long period of time in that game? I was stuck somewhere and I had to watch it. So why was they look like they was just struggling so hard with Duke? And will they have these problems going forward in the ACC?
Well, yeah, I mean, Notre Dame had to do a bit of retooling and reloading on their offensive side. So, I mean, that's a little bit of the issue.
Quarterback
situation. Right, yeah. So I mean, that to me that wasn't surprising, especially given the nature of this season so far, guys. I mean,
but it's still Duke.
No, I mean, I agree. Listen, I get it. It's Duke. You're totally right.
It was basketball. That's different. This is football.
I agree. And again, but you know what? I think it's a week one in college football as well. You see this from time to time in week one college footballs. I mean, listen, Tina just mentioned it. Ask Kansas State, ask Iowa State. I mean, not to compare it, but I mean, you see these sort of things happen from time to time. So I think Notre Dame is a good team. I mean, I think they're gonna be ranked throughout the season, but they were a little rusty.
Well, and also Oklahoma looked really good too. So I know, because they're their opponent. But Spencer Rattler, who, look, I mean, he's actually a guy that Lincoln Riley recruited. So this is the first time in a couple of years that he's actually using a guy that he recruited. So 4 touchdown pass for him. Yes, it's Missouri State, I know, but again, they looked good, and we got a couple of upsets, but. And we'll see if the Big Ten will be able to come back. I don't think they will, but I know that there's this buzz about that they might be able to come back.
They got a meeting coming up today or tomorrow, right? They got a meeting.
Yeah, so I don't look, the Pac-12's already said, look, we're not, especially if you got the governors of these states saying, look, you guys are not playing, forget it, it's not happening. So this is all political at this point, so it's just silly. What do you guys think about that real quick?
I mean, I think, and that's what I was saying, even about like with the fans in the NFL. But I think once they see these other teams playing, I thought it would kickstart something in them and say, man, we got to put our people back out there. And I was all for if one play, all play. And that's kind of how I was looking at it, like the whole time. Like if one set of people was saying they were able to play, I felt like even I know some states got different things going on or whatever, but if you got these players in a bubble, like I think one of the coaches said, they're safer in this bubble than they is in the world. So I was all for them playing, but like you say, we'll see. Lovey, I don't think Lovey having problems down in Illinois right now with some of his relatives. So I don't know if Illinois wants to.
You just had to bring up Lovey, didn't you?
I'm just saying, he had problems down there. So So we'll see.
Hey you guys have comments?
Yeah, it would be a miracle if the Big Ten played at this point. As you guys mentioned, it's all political, and I know the parents were upset, and I know the athletes want to play, and that's all well and good. But as we talked about before, the Lakina, it's all about, can you handle the testing?
Yeah.
Are you going to do it? I'm sure they're going to do it on game day. Are you going to do it the day after the game, like the NFL is doing this year? So, are the other teams in that conference going to follow the same protocol? We just don't know. And so, until those questions are answered, they're not going to play. Maybe I'm looking at this wrong, but unfortunately, common sense doesn't seep into people sometimes. I know the money is at the end game, but until the questions about testing are answered, there's nothing really to talk about here.
Yep, couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Especially we see what happened with Virginia Tech. They've said, look, if we get less than like 8 teams competing in the ACC, you can just forget it. And also, Memphis is having problems too. So just when the Big Ten wants to come back, the ACC and also the American and the other conferences who are playing right now, they're starting to have issues. So really?
Well, as we have been saying, for the past weeks, the past few months, this was a win category, not if. It was a win situation, not if. So now that we see all these problems arising, how are you going to handle it now?
All right. So a couple of days before we disperse, congratulations to the U.S. Open champions, Naomi Osaka on the women's side, and also Dominic Thiem wins his first Grand Slam title on the men's side. He was knocking on the door for the last couple of years.
Yep.
Was really close though. Last couple
that man's thing is a scam. He didn't even hit that lady. He shouldn't have been disqualified. I'm just
about Djokovic.
Yeah.
He didn't even hit that lady. Act like he hit her with a bullet. It wasn't cool. He should have still been in it.
Yeah. That's a tough one too. I mean, the letter of the rule. Everybody says, he did it, and Djokovic has been very apologetic towards it. So because I think he would have won if he hadn't been defaulted. Unfortunately, but Thiem, listen, that was a great match between him and Zverev, yesterday. So that was a great 5-set thriller. So I'm happy with it. I'm happy for Thiem. He, like I said, he earned it. So, and also Osaka too. This is her third Grand Slam or second U.S. Open. So I'm not so good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Even though I was rooting.
Yes. Oh, I mean for Serena. Yeah. Well, Serena had that Achilles injuries too. She's already pulled out of the Italian Open. They're actually starting clay court season this week because we have the coming up in a couple of weeks. So I don't know if she would have been able to play in the final. Should she have won? She wouldn't have been 100%. And folks would say, well, she didn't really, Osaka didn't really earn it. Serena wasn't 100%. So I'm glad it actually worked out the way it did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to get to 24, but I'm concerned. I'm just concerned. I mean, we've kind of seen this the past few years now. It's kind of a semifinals run, and then she kind of loses that momentum. So I just wanted to see her to get to 24. I was hoping for an Osaka Williams rematch. I really, really was, and maybe we'll see it in another final, hopefully. But I hate to say it, but I mean, time is always undefeated when it comes to athletes. So I hope she's got enough left in her to get to 24.
Yeah, I kind of wanted Serena to get that last title. Maybe she will, maybe she won't. But like you said, Jason, Father Time catches up to all of us, and maybe this is the beginning of the end for her. Everybody doesn't play. Had a heck of a career. I would love to see that rematch of the final as well, but we didn't get it. We may get it in some other form or fashion down the road, but hopefully Serena can get healthy and get back to what she loves to do best. And maybe almost like Tiger was, we are looking at him in golf. Can you get that one last major before you hang it up for good?
Yep.
Yeah.
U.S. Open a couple of weeks for the men. So in golf. So that should be a fun one too. Although Brooks Koepka's already said he's gonna pull out. So
well, listen, he ain't been playing well anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
They're not gonna miss it anyway.
Yeah, I'll say that's true. That is true. He has not been playing well lately. So I think I'm taking Dustin Johnson at this point. Although, I mean, look, he might look, Lefty may have something to say about it too. He wants to exercise those demons at Winfoot for some years back. So we'll see. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that. But anything else? Any other sports thoughts you guys have before we leave?
Bears win. Bears win. Bears win. Big series against the Twins for the White Sox this week. The White Sox, as Lamont said, this is a grow-up series for the Southsiders. You take care of Minnesota, you put yourself a distance between them and Cleveland for the AL Central race. This is the time to do it, and it starts tonight.
And you give yourself some confidence, too, going forward. So, yeah, it's a grow-up series.
A sense of normalcy in the world of sports, although it not 100%, but football is back. Of course, we've got the opening Monday night doubleheader tonight, and can't wait for it. And I'm glad we're talking some football again, guys.
Yes, me too. I'm glad we're talking football for real, and even college football. I mean, I'm glad to have it for what we getting. I mean, I like having too many things to watch instead of watching cornhole and things of that.
Wait, Lamont, you mean you weren't excited about the drone racing league that they were
showing? No, but the one thing that never failed me though, through the whole corona, the WWE never went away. So I always had them in AEW. So they never went away. AEW's doing their thing. So it's interesting. They signed a lot of more main they signed a lot of MMA people over. So they spending money.
I think for me that the White Sox Minnesota series is sort of in show me mode. I know we're not in Missouri, but this sort of show me mode with the White Sox, because this is sort of your chance to kind of put some distance between yourself and the rest of the AL Central. The Cubs, just to stay on track.
Yep.
Because everyone else in your division has not been very good. I don't see the Cardinals making a move since they still have to make up a lot of games. So I don't see them doing that. I'm looking forward to Game 7 of Nuggets and Clippers because, again, sort of prove its mode, if you will. Stop sleepwalking. Also, the U.S. Open is actually this weekend at Wingfoot, so I'm looking forward to that too. No crowd, unfortunately. But it's also going to be back on NBC, which I'm very happy about.
Yes.
So no shade to Fox, but they actually have some good stuff, and some of the people there are actually good, but it just didn't feel the same.
Fox losing their mind. Fox gave wrestling $1 billion, so Fox losing their mind. I mean, they gave the WWE $1 billion, so they don't they don't know what they want to do.
Well, and they're losing money too. Remember, so that I'm sure they're not very happy about that either. Not getting the return on their invested.
And Vince steady running stuff. Vince opening up new stuff, so he steady pocketing money. He's set to have his biggest year ever.
Oh my!
So he steady making money.
Yeah, hand over fist. Also, Marlon Mack torn Achilles. He's out for the year. Tough. That's a tough one there for the Colts, because I may have to change my divisional picks, because I had the Colts win that division and they did not have a good start so far. And also, Max gone for the year, so now I gotta find a new running back in my fantasy draft.
Those injuries for Dallas last night, Vanderhurst. Them injuries for Dallas was pretty bad last night. I'm hoping that they can get back. So those was two ugly ones last night for them also.
Mm-hmm.
And on that note, you follow me at Keena McGee on Twitter, at Keena_McGee on the Instagram.
And you can follow yours truly, Sid the Kid, at SidKid80, both on Twitter and Instagram. That's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. As Lamont's doing his little silly dance over there. You can read all of my articles at WeAreRegalRadio.com. That's WeAreRegal Radio.com. And you can listen to Second City Sports via War on Anchor, which kicks you over to Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, SoundCloud. We're everywhere. Wherever you download your podcast, make sure you download Second City Sports and War on Anchor. Also, we on iHeartRadio. Please download the iHeartRadio app. Just search for War on Anchor. That's WARR on Anchor. And you access this lovely program along with our other programming from We Are Regal Radio. We are right there. Please give us your support.
And you can follow me at Lamont Scott on Facebook and Lamont Scott 69 on Instagram and Twitter.
And you can follow me at Truth and Reason _ on the Twitter. You can follow the show's Twitter handle at 2NDCSCHI. Follow us. We follow back.
All right, folks. Enjoy the sports week coming up. And a lot of stuff happening. This is what we've been wanting for. We were able to, we dragged and clawed, we persevered, and hopefully everything goes off without a hitch. So for the guys on the Kansas Second State Sports Zoom style.
Zoom style.
Zoom, 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 zoom.
See you guys next time. Holla!